prizes at the end of the week. And these are some awesome prizes, folks. We get a Bose smart speaker donated by Dave and Janet Schmidt. They're the owners of Dave's Auto Repair. There's a 1987 silver proof Eagle coin donated by Dustin Rhodes. He's the owner of Diamond R Jewelry. We have a handmade ladder rosary donated by Dora Liker. Folks, this is an awesome rosary. It's my favorite rosary. I use it every day. When I say my family rosary, my kids know that that one's mine, and they give me that one just because it is my absolute favorite. I've had it for years, and I think I got it from this station many, many years ago. So a beautiful gift there also. There's a barbecue gift set donated by Kelly Kinky, owner of Horizon Appliance and Electronics. A gift set including hand-woven bracelet, hand-carved limestone cross, and wax reveal candle donated by Kathy Shupman, owner of Katz Hallmark. There is a $100 gift certificate to Hickok's Steakhouse, who fed us today. Man, that was delicious. And it was donated by Oscar Runyon, Greg Whitehair, and Damon Hoard. They are the owners. Thank you to them for giving us our lunch. There's also, and yes, I'm not done, a Men's Divine Mercy Radio shirt, and you get to pick your size and logo, and one for women. So that's all that you get entered in for giving $250 or more. If you give $500 or more, you are entered into the drawing for all those prizes. Plus, you get a 60-second spot celebrating a loved one's birthday, an anniversary of a death, an anniversary, a baptism, a wedding, graduation. If there's any other celebration you can think of, we can help you celebrate that with your 60-second spot if you give $500 or more. We then move up to the $1,000 or more, and you get everything which we have already spoken of. Plus, you get a Divine Mercy Radio baseball cap and 2 tickets to our annual banquet, which will be held Saturday, September 7th in Hayes and Sunday, September 8th in Colby. Our guest speaker will be Catholic Answers apologist Joe Heschmeyer, and we got to interview him here just a couple of months ago. What a great guy, and so very intelligent. It will be an amazing event. You're listening to Divine Mercy Radio, 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg and Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, that's our classic station, and 89.1 KGOH Colby. We are getting ready to get to our next interview as soon as we get them into the studio here. We're going to be talking with Dr. Nick Compagnone about Catholic schools and accountability. Now, before we do that, we are going to get to our first trivia question of the 2 o'clock hour. So get ready to call 785-621-4110, and we will get that question going. All right, here is your question. Where was the Diocese of Salina originally started? Is it A, Salina, B, Hayes, C, Manhattan, D, Concordia? Where was the Diocese of Salina originally started? A, Salina, B, Hayes, C, Manhattan, or D, Concordia? That is your trivia question to start the 2 o'clock hour. Let's get those phones ringing, 785-621-4110. And you can call the same number to help us chip away at those matching funds and get to our Care-a-thon goal of $125,000. I support this station, and I ask that you would too. Join with us. Let's keep those radio waves going. All right. Now to what you all want to hear. Enough of me talking. Let's get to Dr. Nick Compagnone. So Dr. Nick and his wife, Cindy, have devoted their careers to serving students and have been models for Catholic education across the state of Kansas. Having been in education for almost half a century, that's longer than I've been alive, sir. Dr. Nick was inducted into the Kansas Association of Independent and Religious Schools Hall of Fame 2 years ago. He has served in the Dodge City, Wichita, and Salina Diocese, having worked as a teacher from the elementary school level to graduate school. He also has experience in administration from grade school through the district level. How in the world are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine. Good to be here.
Awesome. Looking well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So you got quite the bio there. That's awesome. I think you did more in first half of your life than I've ever done. And so it's a blessing to have you in here. You've been in Catholic education for a long time, which is absolutely fantastic. You've seen all sides of it from the administrative perspective. Then how does Catholic education benefit someone who is in it and maybe their families over a public education while in school and even after they leave school, so post education?
Well, Catholic school's been part of my life since the 60s when I went to Catholic school. I'm originally from New York.
Okay.
And during that time, it was Vatican II was going on. There were a lot of changes in the church, including Catholic schools, but most schools were very parochial. In the state of New York or New York City, you could actually literally go from one block to another with a different school, sponsored by a different parish or different nationalities coming in from the immigration from Europe. And so you had different religious orders. I had the Franciscans, and across the street or down the block, may have been the Dominicans. So it was a really, what that word parochial means, really zoned in on a city block. But driving out here, coming from Salina, you have a rich history of all our parishes that existed in the past had schools. And most of them were Catholic schools, because when the community grew, came together, it was the people in the churches that built a school right behind it. And it was like that since the beginning of our country. Most private schools were established as religious oriented schools. So it has a rich history in the United States. Unfortunately, in the 60s and the 70s, courts came out and said, we have to have a separation and allow the public, private, or Catholic schools had to be separated from public and Catholic schools. So I have been in Catholic schools from a grade school perspective, but I've also I graduated from a public high school.
Okay.
I also graduated from public institutions like Wichita State, Kansas State. I did graduate work there, but I also when I went from a public high to a religious back to college, which was down in Dot City, St. Mary of the Plains College. The difference I found was public schools that I attended were excellent. They taught me a lot of skills that I learned. The big difference was the Catholic culture. Having core values being taught within the curriculum of a college goes all the way down from pre-K to college. I taught at the graduate level at the University of Dayton, which is a Catholic university. And as an adjunct professor, I felt very open to share my faith. And I think that's the big difference between Catholic and a public institution has.
Yeah. Wow. That's absolutely amazing. We're going to get right back with Dr. Compagnone here very quickly. First, I want to congratulate Leon Staub. Leon won the trivia question. And so the question was, where was the Diocese of Salina originally started? And that was in Concordia. So congratulations, Leon. We'll get you put into that drawing for a gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Books here in Hayes. And we'll draw that at the end of the day. I want to remind everybody that you're listening to Divine Mercy Radio's Spring Care-a-thon, Come Follow Me. And right now we are talking to Dr. Nick Compagnone. As we're talking, you can call in at any time. So you can call in to give us your pledge at 785-621-4110, or something that people I think is underused is we have a call-in line for on-air guests. You can call 785-621-5061 and you can ask questions to our guests that are in studio, or you can actually call us at the donation line of text us at the donation line of 785-621-4110 for those on-air questions also. And when they come up, we will get to them. But I think that's a wonderful thing that we're able to do. Call us, text us, send us your questions, call in your donations, 785-621-4110. All right. Talking with Dr. Nick Compagnone about Catholic education. I also, so I wasn't raised Catholic. I graduated from Hayes High. Many great teachers in the Hayes community. There's lots of great people out there, and we need wonderful people in public schools also. But I know why I send my kids to Catholic school. And it's not that Catholic schools are perfect, because they're made of humans. However, the sacraments that my kids get while they're at school, the prayers, even if it becomes monotonous, they pray in every class. They're surrounded by prayer, they're surrounded by sacraments, and they're surrounded by classrooms where the teachers are asked to incorporate the faith into science, into music, into math. And so they're immersed in understanding that your faith is everywhere. It's not supposed to be compartmentalized. And so I can say also from my standpoint that, yeah, that's one of the beauties of Catholic schooling. Did you have anything else to add to that?
Well, we call that educating the whole child.
Mm.
And we integrate the faith, our tenets of the faith, our core values. When we teach history or science, it's embedded what we feel is the truths coming from the gospel message. And adding on to that, it's the culture of the school in reaching out to the outer community, to parishes, to the community, and doing service projects, and praying for one another, having social concerns. It's just embedded. And when one leaves here in TMP or Sacred Heart High School, they're ready to take on the world, wherever they go, whether it's a public university or the workspace. They have that core value within them that they could feel confident that they could share their faith.
Absolutely. So you already talked about your growing up and your background. So there's got to be a lot that you've seen change then. One of those changes is, you even talked about it a little bit, just kind of the separation of school and state, I guess you would call it.
Yes, and there was a Supreme Court ruling in the 60s where there were schools, and Victoria is one of them, because my wife's from that community, where we had religious orders serving public schools.
Yeah.
And that court case got rid of that. And and because that was partly embedded into that community, which still is today. But that became a wall that had different interpretations, that the state can't sponsor religious activities.
Mm-hmm.
The other aspect of it became that it also put religious schools to the side.
Yeah.
And there were barriers to that. And so that continued to the 70s and 80s. With Vatican II, we also had more of a break with the Universal Church, where it was more the vernacular of the local community or countries, where Latin Mass became the English Mass. Mm-hmm. And then they became more widely known for different ministries. And for whatever reasons, during the 70s and 80s, we lost our religious orders to Catholic schools. And we had new leadership coming in. And there was a lot of transitions. And the conversation of the church and state and secular versus non-secular education has been always there, whether it's good, bad, or evil, depending on who you want to look at. So so there is a fine wall between public and private schools, and it unfortunately became very competitive.
Gotcha.
And so Catholic schools during the 70s and 80s, in my opinion, were trying to nurture their identity from the past, but with the loss of the religious orders, they had to find a new identity within their parish communities. And so there was a lot of hit and misses in during that time, when there was a lot of school conversation of reforms even on the public side, No Child Left Behind, the Sputnik experiment, which science became a big issue. Common Core was another issue that came out in the public, and both sides were trying to figure out what's best for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Catholic schools were trying to fit into that mold, and some tried to go with the ways where what trends were, may have lost the way of the traditional Catholic school.
Okay.
And so we're now seeing a return to that.
Yeah.
I think in the last decade or two, especially the last few years, where the culture has changed in the United States and people are looking for something different.
Yeah. I think one of the beautiful things we now have here at TMP and Holy Family also, we have the sisters who have come to help us out. And I think that's amazing, because part of it is when we talk about vocations, a lot of times I feel like the girls got left out. I taught at TMP and I was always talking about vocations, whether that's married life, or if you have a religious vocation or whatever it is that God's calling you to. But, here I am, a married guy, and we had priests on campus, and so that is one of those beautiful things that, as you talk about, some of those things are starting to come back. We also now have, we always had a priestly presence at TMP. And so we're keeping that and trying to make that a reality, but also bringing in the religious sisters so that the girls can see like, oh, there are women who go into this too. And it's not just a fairy tale that you hear about.
And, I had the opportunity to visit their classrooms this past year as part of my accreditation responsibilities.
Uh-huh.
And I was sitting and observing classrooms with a tool that we have. But when I walked away, I told our superintendent, Jeff Andrews of the Saline Diocese, I said, I sat in there. It took me back to when I was in the classroom.
No, that's awesome.
Because of the same persona, the same deep spirituality that just filled the room with what they were talking to those students.
Yeah, that is absolutely wonderful. And that's good to hear that some of that is coming back, and that we can also recognize it and see it and understand it. And those ladies, they're so joyful. I love them.
And they're just, they're out there. Hayes community is very fortunate. I know that's one of our bishop's priorities, but they're just very few out there.
Yeah.
And but when if a community has the opportunity, they'll be blessed.
Absolutely. So you talked a little bit about you sitting in the classrooms to do accreditation. So what is accreditation? What does it look like? Why is it important? What can you give us a background on about all of that?
Well, accreditation basically has always been available, mainly known in the college areas.
Yeah.
Because you had to be accredited to conduct a college, and an outside group would come in and do evaluations of the coursework that was done, the faculty and staff credentials, and so forth. So that's always been around in the United States for forever. When our high schools were established, both public and our Catholic high schools, they also sought accreditation. And here in Kansas, it was the North Central Accreditation Association. And they were accredited. Accreditation means you validate what you say you are, who you are. These are the things that we're good at. And so an outside team comes in and objectively looks at the academics, the culture of the school, the makeup of the staff, and the faculty and students. And then they come up with a criteria of standards to see if they met those standards. So in the 1980s and 90s, we had the No Child Left Behind issues, and a lot of issues out there whether schools were performing at the highest levels they can be. So the state of Kansas and including public and our Catholic schools were looking at accreditation. So now all our Catholic schools in the Saline Diocese are accredited K to 12 through the state accreditation. So we do a lot of things that are the same as the public school in some curriculum areas, in some standards, but we still kept different because we have the mission of our Catholic identity and culture.
Yeah.
We bring in someone from the outside, which we use Cogna, and they come in and measure our standards and tell us where we stand and how we rank very well nationally and on the state level. So this gives our schools accountability, and I'm not too sure parents and our shareholders understand how well we do because they look at
Yeah.
data that outranks a lot of national data,
Mm-hmm.
state levels, and even some of the local levels. And I would encourage parents to inquire, say, what do you
Yeah.
do and what does your accreditation say?
Yeah.
And challenge our Catholic schools to be a little bit more forward about it because I think there's a lot of good news in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you because I've seen the numbers. Obviously having taught at TMP, I got to see a lot of those numbers, and that is another one of the beautiful testaments to Catholic education. Is that first and foremost? I imagine this is how it is across our diocese, but our Catholic schools are Catholic. We're not just like a private school that happens to have Catholic kids in it.
Right.
But that's our identity, is we're a Catholic school. But then I think because of that comes a lot of that, is those standards are higher. And yes, you're right. Almost always on like the standardized state testings and stuff like that, our Catholic schools are ranking above what the national standards are hitting.
That's absolutely correct. And we encourage administrators to ring that bell.
Yeah.
And the other thing I just want to say, as part of my accreditation background, I have chaired accreditation teams, both in public and private schools.
Uh-huh.
And I've been in excellent public schools.
Yeah.
And I've ranked some public schools very high, and across the board. Public schools have needs just as much as Catholic schools. The difference is we do it more efficiently. When we're talking about a national average as high as $27,000 for the cost per student, and here in our diocese, the average is $6,700, and we do the same type of quality work, if not better.
Yeah.
That says something about the people who work for us and the communities that support us.
Yeah. And, earlier on this morning, we were talking with Jim Mull about stewardship. I mean, that completely speaks to that, is that we have people that have understood the need for that and how special it is to have that. And people who, I mean, there's the constant joke, but everybody knows it true. You don't go into Catholic education to become rich. Would it be nice to be able to offer those dollars? Absolutely. But a lot of what people do to keep our schools running and keep them going is they give of their time without having to be paid for it. They donate in driving buses and doing all that. And that I think that speaks testaments to what you're saying, is whatever we have, because we have our faith background behind it, we can say, okay, I'm not getting shafted. I'm giving of the gifts that I have to help further the next generation.
And I teach, I've taught school finance for the University of Dayton, specifically for Catholic schools. It's not the money, how much money you spend, it's where you focus it.
Yeah.
And where you focus it on the mission of the school. And I've always said, if you don't have a mission, you won't have the money.
Yep. Wow. That is great to hear. Okay, we are talking with Dr. Nick Compagnone. He is a wonderful man who's been around our diocese for a long time and has done a lot to help out with Catholic education. You're listening to our spring Care-a-thon, Come Follow Me. We ask that you would partner with us in keeping this radio station on the air. And we ask that you would do that by prayerfully asking the Lord what it is that maybe you could do to help us out. Number one, prayers. Let us all start there. Pray for the success of our Catholic radios and the mission of that we have to get God's word out there to the masses. And also, if you are able to help us monetarily, please call 785-621-4110. We do have a Care-a-thon goal of $125,000. And that Care-a-thon goal goes to, we have built new towers. We've had to put up buildings. We have air conditioning in those buildings. We have the radio station here. We have satellites, equipment, and all kinds of stuff. I mean, when it starts adding up, it starts adding up. But because of people like you, we are able to do this. We're able to stay on the air. So thank you, thank you, thank you for all of our donors. Let's see if we can get some new donors. Let's see if we can get some more people to return and help keeping us do this. 785-621-4110 to give us your pledge. And here in a few minutes, we're going to get to a second trivia question. I know that's everybody's favorite part, but you're going to have to wait a little bit because we're having a great discussion here with Dr. Nick Compagnone, and I want to get back to it. So we've talked a lot about accreditation, about what that means, a lot about Catholic schools and stuff like that. And you even talked about how things have changed over the years. There is a pretty good talk right now within our country because some states are starting to go to school choice. What can you tell us, or do you have any insight into this, into Kansas, what it looks like for us, or any thoughts on that?
This past year nationally, there have been 6 new school choice initiatives in 6 different states. A lot of it has been in the Midwest, the Southeast, and Wyoming has a very good school choice program that's very liberal in supporting private schools. So it has been the trend over the last several years. It's been out there for quite a while. Since the 1990s, vouchers were the words that were always talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And vouchers are basically giving parents choice, where they actually receive money to go to any school that they want to. And so that has been successful in the state of Ohio, Minnesota, and some of the mini states. The barriers have been to in some of the states where giving money to parents and giving money to parents to private schools that are religious based.
Yeah.
And so for a long time that was stuck in the courts. And it was only recently when courts said, no, if parents are empowered, it's their choice. And so they have the choice of where they can go to school. Well, Kansas, by the way, is a school choice state, not as liberal as some of the vouchers or other programs that are out there. But starting this year in the public sector, you can go to any public school you want to.
Yeah.
You don't have to anymore follow the boundaries. Now, each district has rules to that,
Mm-hmm.
but it has opened the lines of if I want to go to one community school, from one community to another, I can without having to be in residence. So that's a big key there. But there's also public charter schools. Oklahoma now has the first Catholic charter school that's going to be opening up. So that has a door open there. And there are also other programs that Kansas did try an ESA program, which is an educational savings account for parents, where the state would give a certain percentage of the cost per student of what it costs that child to attend a private school.
Mm-hmm.
It barely did not go through the legislature. There's still a lot of political issues there. One of the big arguments was, where's the accountability to it? My argument is, look at the accreditation data.
Yeah.
Go to your communities and compare the same data the state uses for their schools that we have.
Yeah.
It's out there.
Yeah.
So we do have accountability.
Yeah.
It's not to the fact that we don't. So any parent can make that choice. Well, sure, I want to go there.
Yeah.
And if we didn't have that accountability, perhaps parents don't want to make that choice.
Yeah.
So that's the key there. We do have a tax credit scholarship in the state of Kansas, and the Salina Diocese has an SGO. You just had, as part of the development office that you just previously had the conversation with, the tax credit scholarship looks at finding donors to fund scholarships for parents that cannot afford tuition or school supplies.
Wow.
In our school, in our diocese, school funding is different in almost every school.
Yeah.
But there is a cost,
Mm-hmm.
and some parents can't afford that. So we do have an SGO that raises money to help parents that are in need, to help fund those parents for those costs. This has been passed by the state of Kansas. It's monitored by the state. And we urge anybody that's out there that's interested to contact one of our Catholic schools to get them in touch with the of this SGO to make an application.
Fantastic. That is a good place for us to stop really quickly. Hold that thought because I'm going to have a question for you. I want to get to our second trivia question of the hour. So just a reminder for everybody with the trivia questions, call in. If you get it right, we will put your name in a drawing at 6 o'clock every day. We will draw for one winner to get a gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts here in Hayes. Jerome and Angela Schmeidler are the owners of it. They have a wonderful shop. They've done a great job in our community, and it is a beautiful little store. You ought to go down there on 10th Street off of Main, see their store, visit them. But even better, if you win this trivia question and you get that gift certificate, you now have free money to go down and buy some books. And if you don't want it, hey, I know some people who would take it. So call 785-621-4110. Here is your question. Same number that you used to call in with your pledge. You can call in here to answer this question. All right. The second question of the 2 o'clock hour is, how many bishops has the Diocese of Salina had? Is it A24, B12, C36, or D7? How many bishops has the Diocese of Salina had? A24, B12, C36, D7. 785-621-4110. You are listening to Divine Mercy Radio, and we are on our spring Care-a-thon. Come follow me. We have that Care-a-thon goal of $125,000, and we've got matching funds today also of, we started with $21,250. We've used up around $5,000 or $6,000 of those dollars, but we want to use them all up if we can today. So please call in 785-621-4110. Let's get those funds used up, and let's keep doing what we do best. Let's stay on the radio and give people the truth. All right. We are talking with Dr. Nick Compagnone. He has been around Catholic schools for all of his life. He has been working in Catholic schools, been on the teaching administration side, pretty much everything you can think of. And he's talked with us about accreditation and all kinds of things within Catholic schools. You know, we've been discussing school choice. I mean, maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. Is one of the hurdles for this that, especially with a religious school, once we start to receive government funds, then the government has ability to kind of dictate what we can and cannot do. Is that one of the hurdles that we have to cross, or do you know?
That is a big discussion, and it depends on the type of program, a school choice. For example, in Ohio, when they first started vouchers, it went directly to the schools. And so the schools had to kind of follow the directions coming from the state of what to do with those vouchers and how to do it. Same thing with accreditation. Let me go back to that. We're accredited by the Department of Education in Kansas by KISA, but we're also accredited by Cognitive, which is the national accreditation. We're very careful to make sure that we want to be unique and Catholic, and we want to keep our mission intact.
Yeah.
So we're very careful of the state telling us what to do. I mentioned the ESA programs, which that there were several of them just passed. We didn't pass one in the state of Kansas. The difference there is that the money goes to parents, not the school.
Okay.
That is the key,
Okay.
because the parents control the money,
There you go.
not the state.
Okay.
So the parents, when they go into a religious school, they're going in it on their own initiative. This is my choice. Now, will there be some issues with some court cases about civil rights and so forth? There probably will be. We already do those things.
Yeah.
Because we do participate in federal programs like the Hot Lunch program.
Yeah.
We special ed. A lot of our schools are involved with that, and we get title funding from the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
But those are very, very little intrusive. Once the state, and the state's very careful, trying not to tell us how to teach or what to teach, or to change our mission, that's where the line's going to be drawn.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So in one way, then it is possible that school choice could come about where we wouldn't have to worry too much, because if they put it in the hands of parents, well, then parents get to say.
Parents would be able to pay the cost of education of in a public school, for example.
Yeah.
For their book fees or sports fees and so forth. So yes, putting it in the parents' hands, because it's a parent's choice.
Okay.
Makes a big difference. It depends on how that legislation is written.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, just on the also practical side of things, how does that work? This is kind of a side discussion, but I'm just curious. How does that work? How does the government know you're actually spending that on schooling, and that parents aren't just taking that money? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
And like,
well,
we're going to
there
go out
will
to
be
eat.
there will be probably some accountability. I know with the
Yeah.
tax credit scholarships that we have in Kansas right now, families that are participating in it and schools that are participating in it are audited by the Treasury Department
Okay. All right.
to make sure the money's going where it's supposed to.
Absolutely. Okay. So, well, that is a good discussion to have, and something to keep in mind. Want to get back to our trivia question. We didn't get an answer to it yet, but I know that somebody out there who is listening either knows the question or knows somebody that does, or you might have to cheat and Google it. I wouldn't have known this. So let's see who can get this question. How many bishops has the Diocese of Salina had? Is it A24, B12, C36, or D7? How many bishops has the Diocese of Salina had? 24, 12, 36, or 7? Call 785-621 4110. That is the same number you call with your donation. So as we're talking with Dr. Nick Compagnone, the beauty about this station is we get to have conversations like this. We get to, on the air, talk about the intersection of our society and our faith, where things are going well, where things are difficult, and all kinds of stuff. And especially talking about the beauty of Catholic education. My children are in Catholic education. And as we said earlier, it's not that all public schools are evil or anything like that, but it's just that there is so much good that comes out of Catholic education, even when it comes to just the higher scores within testing and stuff like that, that we're able to sit here and maybe people are listening that did not know, wow, I really didn't realize that that's another thing that Catholic schools offer, is just that heightened bar of this is where we're going to expect you to perform. And we constantly show that, like you said, Dr. Compagnone, with the numbers. So that's a good thing for people to know and good thing for people to hear. I guess then, as we kind of go forward in this conversation and in the future, what do you see as the role of Catholic schools for the short term and the long term?
Well, we when we first started, we talked about the beginnings of our roots as private Catholic schools, where they came from.
Yeah.
It came from the home, and I think we had some bumps in the road during our history with Catholic schools and education in general, in trying to find ourselves. And I think the key is coming home, coming back home. I think the Catholic schools and the parishes need to rethink their business model. Too many times I hear the word, especially in school choice, or people that may be for or against school choice talk about private education.
Oh, yeah.
There's nothing private about Catholic schools.
Yeah.
It's called evangelization. And so we open our doors to all, not just the few.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to remarket our schools and try to stay away from we're a private education entity that we can do whatever we want. Not necessarily we do what the gospel tells us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's one thing I think that as we're looking at the cultural pressures from the outside, that we need to come back home to look at that. And I mentioned about being in one of the sisters' classes.
Yeah.
That made me come back home.
Yeah.
The school councils and the governance needs to focus on telling the story about their schools. Sometimes of all the school councils, we have all our schools have different governing bodies and councils that work with pastors. They all seem to be focused on what can we do or how can we solve problems. The big question is how can we enhance our mission?
Yeah.
How can we bring other people involved with our parish community, including our schools? So that message that we're not private, we're Catholic, and we have a mission, and this is who we are. So
Yeah,
that's one area. The other thing is setting ourselves apart. Sometimes when I said we're a little competitive about public versus private, you'll never hear me say, and I've said several times in this conversation, I've seen amazing things in the public sector.
Yeah.
But I've seen a lot of great stuff in the Catholic school sector also.
Yeah.
A lot of things parents don't know about, the community does not know about, and we need to get that message out there. Social media helps that, but I think we need to go back and be more personal.
Yeah.
Because faith is personal.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, we have a lot of technology in our schools. We have a lot of social media. Whether that social media is working with new generation of employees, depending on that, and not being more personal, that is a question in that. And again, going back home, I was about an hour away from my grade school. If I did something or something happened to me personally during that day, it took an hour for me to get home by bus.
Oh, wow.
But if something happened, my parents knew that.
Yeah. Yep.
It wasn't a message through an email. It wasn't a message that they found on some social media.
Uh-huh.
It was personal.
Yep.
So I think, with all the technology we have and so forth, I think we need to redo what evangelization means, is reaching out one-to-one.
Yeah.
So that's one area that they could also look. And then along with that, looking at being a little bit more creative, being in the hybrid models. We have a lot of good stuff after school activities that we offer to our students. We have some courses that are off center, sometimes not even taught, religion courses. We have chess clubs. a lot of activities that we, again, address to the whole child. I think we need to bring in some people from the outside that are not attending our schools, maybe to come in after school to join that chess club or that special math class that maybe, or science class that may be unique, or studying um, computer engineering that somebody else that's in a homeschool, which homeschool is rising in popular
Yeah, it is.
population, bring them to us. That's part of the evangelization. Why not a virtual school, a Catholic virtual school, from one of our high schools to bring those people with Catholic values and so forth? There's something called micro schools. I don't know if you're familiar with
I am
that.
not.
Micro schools are in a lot of our cities in Wichita and Kansas cities, and they're kind of popping up like pop-up stores,
Okay.
and people are renting vacancies in strip malls
Oh my.
and places where they're renting space where parents are getting together to teach their own kids.
Oh, really? Kind of like how
And kind
education
of mini
started.
homeschools.
Yeah.
And then they have different places to go at different
Uh-huh.
levels. Well, there's a market obviously for that coming out there. So why not have something after school? One of the trends that I think in one of the states, and I think it's in Illinois, is having religious education in the afternoon, where the school districts have partnered with some of the religious schools to go through the religion classes in the afternoon at that school.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. And so do you know the ins and outs of that? Because how would that work? Once again, going back to government funds, school choice and stuff like that.
Permission of the parents.
Okay.
It was part of the schedule.
So as long as they're
Yes.
accredited, as long as they're getting their
Yes.
credit hours
Right.
according to the public system that they're in,
Right.
they could then take like an elective,
Absolutely.
be bussed over.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And it exists in many of our rural schools. We're sharing staff
Huh.
between public and about some of our Catholic schools, because, for example, an art teacher is difficult to find, and you can't hire a part-time one. So there's a partnership where they go to one school to another. So those are to be a little bit more creative, to be more open. The more people you bring into your schools, the more apt you're going to convert them, saying, even if they're there for a half a day,
Yeah.
we're evangelizing what we're doing.
Yeah. And I think another important part to that too is, especially myself as a parent, is knowing these things so that I can invite others and let them know how great our Catholic schools are. Once again, they're not perfect. I mean, I don't want people to get us wrong. They're made of people, I'm a parent there and I'm not perfect. So obviously I know this. However, yeah, the very good things that are done there, we should want other people to know, like, hey, come to our Catholic schools, see what they can offer. And as parents to also support that. As a parent, I am the domestic church. I know that if I want my kids to succeed, it's first and foremost on me. And so I need to be giving my kids what they need. But then also I understand that to send them to a Catholic school that has those high standards, that's going to help me as a parent to give them what they need.
And you mentioned domestic church, and I use the term coming home.
Yeah.
I think our Catholic schools do a very good job connecting the home to the school. And I think that is the key to success of our schools, not necessarily putting more money into them, but investing into our families, the time and the talent, the treasures that they do to service our schools brings that niche together. And yes, you're right. We're not perfect. When it comes with the discipline problems and all the other issues that go along, they're very similar to what the public schools have.
Yeah.
The difference is how we handle it. We should be handling it through the gospel and compassion. And the idea that when it all ends up, we have a culture of forgiveness
Yeah.
and reconciliation.
Yeah.
And reconciliation is key in our Catholic culture.
Yeah. And I don't know where it is everywhere, but I do have to give a shout out to Mandy Mayer and the team over at Holy Family, because they're working really hard right now on trying to reinvigorate the gospel message into kids and family. Just because of some of the things that they've had to deal with. And so, I mean, some of the things that they've seen kids with on their screens, some of the things that they've heard come out of kids' mouths and stuff like that, you know, and understanding that that's not the gospel message that we are trying to teach. And they're doing an amazing job of implementing a system that reminds them, am I being Christ to one another? And so once again, I got to give a shout out to them, because I know it's not easy, but also to call anybody listening, especially if you are a parent out there, you have to hold yourself accountable. You have to partner with our Catholic schools. Our Catholic schools cannot be a place where we send our children and expect them to come back and be good stewards of God's creation if we're not first teaching it at home. Because, as you know, a teacher can talk to you till they're blue in the face and have all the right things to say, but if they're hearing a different message from their parents, they're going to listen to their parents. They're going to follow their parents. They don't care what that teacher says.
And the other thing is, I was listening to some program about the issues about homework.
Yeah.
And the merits of homework. And I understand that, you know, especially with a lot of activities we have with kids. But I know if some of our schools actually require that parents take the time to read to their child and put it in a log.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to make sure that they're there, they have time. And whether if it's just a little project or a little reading or doing a little math assignment together, it connects the parents and gives them responsibility also with their children.
I love it, because, man, doggone it. You mean you're going to force me to spend time with my kids? Wow, that is really neat. I'm going to break in here really quickly. We have just a few minutes left, but I wanted to congratulate Sandy Lang. She was our trivia winner for the second question. How many bishops has the Diocese of Salina had? 12. The answer was 12. Congratulations, Sandy. We will get your name put into that drawing for the gift certificate to Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts. You're listening to Divine Mercy Radio's Spring Care-a-thon. Come follow me. You're listening to the stations in Lindsborg and Salina, Hayes, Great Bend, or Colby. And so we thank all of you for listening. And we also thank Mary Ann Bohm for pledging $250. Her pledge just became $500 because we have those matching funds. So thank you very much, Mary Ann, for partnering with us in our mission, and for those donors who gave us those matching funds. We still have plenty of them left. Let's get those funds used up, folks. Join with Mary Ann, join with myself, and support this station, 785-621-4110. Let's get those phones rolling. We have a Care-a-thon goal of $125,000. We still have about $15,000 worth of matching funds. Let's use them up. 785-621-4110. All right. We are on talking with Dr. Nick Compagnone, and talking a lot about school accreditation, just about the beauty of Catholic schooling, not private schooling, and really kind of getting our brand out there so that people know the good things that are going on, and what our Catholic schools and our diocese are doing. Dr. Compagnone, we have here about 4 minutes left. What would you like to leave with us about Catholic legacy, Catholic schools within our diocese, and anything else with that?
Well, the main message I'm trying to portray is the worth of our Catholic schools. The standards are proven given. I encourage the communities out there to share that good news about their Catholic schools. Number two, I encourage parents to share with other parents what the good news about their child. I always try to say that most of our Catholic schools are very, very successful in challenging the child no matter what level they're at. And that's very important. It's where your child is and how they grow. And with our whole theme has been growing with your child as a whole child. And many schools use the term in mind, body, and spirit. Without those three components, we just can't move the kingdom to where we want to go. And coming home is very important in our parishes, in our educational system for Catholic schools, and in the future in trying to change some models, and looking at the future in school choice, and looking at the future of keeping our enrollments stable, sustained, and promising, because that's the promise of our Catholic schools.
Absolutely. Dr. Compagnone, thank you so very much for your time. We
Great
really
being here.
appreciate you being here today. Have a great day, sir.
Yeah.
All right. You are listening to Divine Mercy Radio Spring Care-a-thon. Come follow me. We just got done having a wonderful conversation with Dr. Compagnone. And I'd like to reiterate his message, that our Catholic schools here in our diocese are a wonderful thing, a wonderful opportunity to give to your children. Just think about all of the sacraments that they're able to get there. Think about all the prayers they will be surrounded with. Think about how it is about educating the entire person, and first and foremost, keeping that Catholic identity, not just being a private school. So I would say to anybody out there listening, go check out Catholic schools within your listening area. See if you know somebody that you would like to share that with. We get a hold of the principals, talk to them, ask them for the accreditation scores and stuff like that. They'd be more than happy to share them with you so that you can see the great things that are going on with within our Catholic schools within the diocese. And that way we can offer that for your children also. You're listening to Divine Mercy Radio Spring Care-a-thon. Come follow me. We have a Care-a-thon goal of $125,000. That Care-a-thon goal or where we're at on that goal, you can see if you go to dvmercy.com, and you can watch the thermometer as it goes up. So you can donate at 785-621-4110. You can also donate online at dvmercy.com. And just a couple of reminders for everybody listening. So that's the number to call for a pledge, 785-621-4110. But also, we do have an on-air guest line. That line is 785-621-5061. So any of our guests that you're listening to, you could call in to the station and have a question for us right away while we're on the air. Or you can text the pledge number at 785-621-4110 with your question. They'll get it in here to me, and we'll be able to answer that in live time. So please remember that we have those options for you when you're listening to the guests. We have the Never Forget plan. I wanted to remind people of that, which is where if you sign up for a monthly withdrawal from your credit or checking card, you'll receive a $10 gift certificate from Messenger Traditional Catholic Books and Gifts here in Hayes. Messenger is also online at traditionalcatholicstore.com. That's traditionalcatholicstore.com. Please help us with our total goal of $125,000. We still have around $15,000 of matching funds. So when you give $100, $500, or any other amount, it automatically gets doubled. We are getting ready to take a break for the 3 o'clock hour. You are listening to 101.7 KJDM Lindsborg and Salina, 105.7 KMDG Hayes, 88.1 KRTT Great Bend, 88.1 KVDM Hayes, that's our classic station, and 89.1 KGOH Colby. We will be back on at the 4 o'clock hour.